Thank you very much. Don and I are delighted to be here. I mean, this is a fun conference. One of the things that's always great is it's great to go to a conference focused on emotional and behavior disorders, especially during the cocktail hour, right? Have you ever noticed that the level of behavior, I mean, I've always noted, especially Carl Smith and Mike Epstein always behave differently here than they do at other conferences because they sort of feel empowered, you know, at this particular conference. Don and I have been asked to focus on a relatively specific topic. We're going to talk about the issue of fidelity of measures. And part of that really comes about with a perception that's going on both at the national level, at the state level, and at individual districts, at the real focus on implementing evidence-based practices. I mean, you've got to have this sense that every time you turn around, there's a new package for social skills development or literacy development or math development, right? And so you get all of these different issues that are coming up. Partly, we want you to be excited about the new and emerging opportunities without being inundated and overwhelmed with this sense of, my gosh, my task today is to implement these 32 packages. I come to this having been a special ed teacher, and I was one of those teachers who had a little bit of success with kids with problem behavior. You know, what happens to the teacher who has a little bit of success with kids with problem behavior? You get them all, that's right. All right, so as a result, I kept getting sent away to conferences, right? And I would get sent away, and every time I got a 3-ring glossy binder, and I was supposed to come back and inoculate the rest of the staff, right? So basically, one of the things that we've all learned is that that's not a way that's actually going to produce functional change. So what Don and I are trying to do, here are the things that we'd like to share. One, we'd like to share with you some lessons that we've learned working with schools, states, classrooms, teachers across the country in terms of implementing evidence-based practice. We each come from a perspective with the knowledge base that we've got, but we really want to talk about this in a larger measure. Partly, we all know that if you're going to do research, talking about did you actually implement what you said is critical. So those of you who are graduate students, all right, this is the point for you to listen up. All right, Don's going to have specific little tutorial on how to get your dissertation approved. All right. But the real thing that we want to do is we really want to come down to this notion of this. As people are moving forward with RTI, multi-tiered interventions, whatever, there are a couple of themes that are going to be really, really important. One, every time someone brings you a new strategy, package, or trick, I want you to ask, how does it work for all of the kids?
Without exception, when I have wanted to call upon a showcase example of the kinds of things that can indeed happen to bring about dramatic changes in the lives of children, I have always turned to the work of Rob Horner and George Sagai. It is just, their work has had such an enormous impact on us as a field and certainly on me individually. The work that we're doing has built on, and we call upon the work that Rob has just described. And I'm going to do something, and I think you're going to see a lot of overlap, but I'm going to do something that Rob said we should shy away from, and that is I'm going to begin with a story. But we'll move to measurement here. But I want to set my remarks up by telling you a little story of a journey that we took to move us to a place where we better understood how to bring about the change that Rob has been talking about across schools and across districts and across systems. This is a dear colleague of mine, Jim Knight. He looks happy here. About 20 years ago, he didn't have a happy face. He was within a whisker's length of getting his PhD in English literature, was climbing mountains in Canada. He's a Canadian citizen, and asked the question when he got on top of a peak, what does having a PhD in English literature have to do with real life? So he decided to stop that work and do something else. And what that was. He didn't know, but he had 5 kids, and he thought, or his wife told him, you better get a job. And so he did. He got a job at a community college in Toronto, and of course, being the last guy hired, they gave him this class of remedial students. And he didn't have the foggiest idea what to do. They were running all over him, and they were not succeeding. And so he was desperate for a solution. He heard of a workshop being given. It was being given by a person affiliated with our research center. He went, learned of some methods, some of the procedures that we've developed. He got these, he got religion, and man, he went out to convert Canada. And as he did, he took his checklists, as Rob said, and he was doing his number, ensuring, you know, he's saying, here's what it is, here's how you do it, here's your checklist. And then he gave them all a postcard. And he said, now, after you get implementing this, he said, write me a note and send it back and tell me what's happening. We want a dialogue. This is pre-internet days. And then every day he'd go to the mail and he'd find no postcards. And he was wondering, what is happening? Well, the reality is, if he could look inside their classrooms, he would have found that all of those great procedures that he was teaching to them ended up in a place where the changes in kids wasn't happening as we would hope. So what I'd like